All right, man. Let's talk about good old Joe Budden. You know, Joe Budden will find a way to say something, and he's pretty open and. Usually doesn't care on what he says on his show, but
I think he cares a lot, actually.
You think he cares?
Yes, he does. He cares a lot.
Cares about what people think about what he's going to say?
Yes.
I think he cares a lot about the words that come out of his mouth, and I think he is very intentional about it.
Oh, calculated.
No, intentional.
Intentional. Okay. All right. Well,
I am also very intentional with the words that I say.
Come out of your mouth.
Yeah.
All right, man. So Joe Budden clearly, and not the title of this, Joe Budden isn't sexy. You'll see why. When I read this. Legendary hip-hop MC Joe Budden recently voiced his opinion on the Sexyy Red and Bruno Mars collaboration, Fat, Juicy, and Wet.
Ew.
Okay.
When didn't this come out like several months ago?
Yeah, but he suggested that Mars, who built his career on vintage soul and pop, veers into a hyper-sexualized territory seemingly to match Red's provocative energy. Okay. So let's play the clip, and I got a couple questions.
So because I'm black, I'm mad at, I can hear this song is formulaic. Yes. And I have a problem with the formula used to attract black listeners versus the formula used to attract a white audience. And this is yet another clear example of that. When Sexyy Red, when it's time to sell a mixtape or get popping in the hood's ground level where you need it to be, it's a whole bunch of pull my tampon out, me in the bro, it's a whole bunch of just raunchy, it's the raunchiest, nastiest shit that works because we the people, we like that shit.
Okay.
There's a little bit of that in this song.
I'm about to say, is
no, it
here?
No, it ain't.
Milk mustache when you eat the
milk
pussy.
mustache, writing my name, my autograph, and squirt.
Stop that. That ain't nowhere near any lyric that I've heard in Sexyy Red records. That is the whitewashed version of Sexyy Red.
But it's still
milk mustache.
But it's still graphic. Yeah.
It's still graphic.
It's nowhere near as graphic as any Sexyy Red.
Because they're trying to cross her over. So
I think that shit that's attractive. Now, again, not saying it's not gonna work, but I'm calling code switching when I see it. This is a nasty caricature code switch.
Who's code switching more, Bruno or her?
That's a great question. That is a phenomenal question.
So is there an issue with artists that represent, we'll say, two completely different genres, or vibes is a word that we use, when they come together to collaborate? Because clearly that's what we have here. Bruno Mars is the total opposite. I'm talking about, I don't know how much opposite you can get from Sexyy Red, but they collabed on the record. I guess it's doing well. It's not my thing, but
I've never heard it, so I don't even know what it sounds like. But
finish the question.
You probably know what it sounds like. Yeah. But go ahead, Jay. You got an issue? Is there an issue there?
More so for Sexyy Red than there is for Bruno Mars, because remember, one of Bruno Mars's biggest looks a few years ago is the collaboration he did with Cardi B. In fact, he's done a couple with Cardi B when she was at the top.
Oh,
Please Me and whatever the song that sounded like it could have been a Belle Biv DeVoe record. When Sexyy Red, on the other hand, she's probably got handlers who are like, hey, you need to ingratiate yourself to another audience because you're getting burned out on the audience that was supporting you during the beginning part of your career. You have to start crossing over, because that's what they do with all artists, they see that potential in them. Mm-hmm. Now, I will tell you this because, once again, I look at chart position, and I look at the difference between, the first week something is out and when people are talking about it, and the difference between what happens 2 or 3 weeks later. This song hit and fell right off the charts because, honestly, I don't want to hear Sexyy Red's music at all. But, if I'm going to listen to Bruno Mars, I want to hear him do something else with Anderson .Paak.
That is the point.
I'm not surprised that he would do something like this, but, Sexyy Red, I don't think she has what it takes to try and cross over at this point. Now, mind you, since I don't run a nightclub anymore, I haven't heard a Sexyy Red song since the Casbah closed. Not in passing.
Yeah.
Not, I don't listen to commercial radio. The only time I hear it is when I'm in an Uber. But other than that, you have to understand this song did not accomplish anything that it set out to do.
Because it screams unnecessary.
Yeah. Exactly. And it screams like, hey, it sounds like somebody in an office saying, hey, let's put peanut butter and jelly together, even though it's more like peanut butter and, I don't know, just horse shit. I don't know. It just wasn't something that was ever going to work.
I want to pose another question, but I want to give Terry a chance. Is there anything you want to add to that in terms of that question?
I think I fought both of them on that.
Okay.
Because right now, Bruno, ever since the joint situation with him and Anderson .Paak, he's been kind of quiet. And this may have been his introduction back into the scene, kind of alluding to him dropping new music. So honestly, I fought both of them because he doesn't need it. He doesn't need it, and maybe, like you said, Sexyy Red is searching for a crossover hit, but it's not necessary. And then when you add the video to it, there's no way that's going to be a crossover hit. I don't know if y'all seen anything from that video.
No,
but I hadn't seen the video.
That's no.
But I also say, like, I don't think this represents all genre crossing.
Mm-hmm. No,
to your point, you know what I mean?
Right,
Like,
this
is just a bad pairing.
Yeah,
it's a bad pairing. And the thing is, honestly, Bruno didn't need this. Sexyy Red, saying, because Bruno won a Grammy with Lady Gaga with, you know, the Die With a Smile record, you know, and also he's had a big record with Rose. It's called Apartment or APT or whatever it is you want to say.
Yeah, my daughter loves that song.
Exactly. So he's got huge records out right now. This song was a flop.
It was, and I kind of agree with Joe Budden on the point. I hope this is sticking to the bullet point, but he talked about code switching.
Mm-hmm.
So with the code switching, I'm a Bruno Mars fan. I like his music, but when you go through what he's put out, there is a definite change in there. He's done a lot of genre. He's done pop. He's done like the super pop type stuff where it's super energied up and animated. He's done the kind of ballady thing. He's done the soul with Anderson .Paak, and he's done the R&B. Mm-hmm. So it's like, is he code switching, or is this just part of his DNA? Is he just giving you something of everything that he's into?
For him, this reminds me of the, you know, for lack of a better term, like
we're going to talk about Bruno though.
When the white guy comes around, and he's like, yo, 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 and it's like, we know you don't talk like that.
So let's
the Cardi B records honestly made sense in the context of what Bruno had done before. This makes no sense at all.
So let's go this route from a responsibility standpoint. Does Bruno Mars have a level of responsibility as it relates to his choice of artists? You can just use this as an example for this particular collaboration, because I look at him as the larger artist with, you know, obviously more reach. To Terry's point, I believe everyone's alluded to it, that he doesn't necessarily need it. So is there a level of responsibility with him choosing to do this?
No. I don't. It's puzzling when you have a record out with Lady Gaga that's been topping the charts for the entire summer.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think this was going to do for you? Once again, I feel like, or maybe it was a big check for him, because, you know, sometimes there is a check involved that's too big for you to deny, and you think this is easy work. I'll get out here and this will be a look, you know. And if it doesn't work like it pretty much has, and I still can go back to these Lady Gaga records.
I think there's a level there, but the check is what I initially said when I, you know, heard a piece of the record. I said, the first thing I said out loud was, man, that check must have been crazy, because it didn't match so much to me when I initially heard the record. I was like, yeah, the check has to be there. This has to be a check move.
Yeah, and it's also the subject matter at the end of the day,
right?
Because you're trying to create a new WAP, and it's just not necessary. That was one of those things that was hot at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody's probably going to create another one of those that go off like that. Like it's obvious even in the title and the chorus of that song. It's like you're aiming for something, and it's you're trying to grab the charts, and it's not going to work.
Swing and a miss. I mean, like, even when Cardi and Meg tried to get back together for Bongos, it didn't work. They had I could tell that was an expensive video. They had a certain level of product placement, and people were not interested.
Yeah,
you know, so you can't. Sometimes lightning actually strikes, and you cannot duplicate that.
The responsibility piece. I think that's interesting, because I don't know if any artist necessarily has a specific responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess it just kind of depends on who your fan base is. Like, when you say responsibility, like responsibility to the art, no, I don't necessarily think so. I think anybody can do whatever they want. But like, if Bruno Mars was this person who only made kids music, and then he turned around and made a record with Sexyy Red about, you know, writing your name and squirt and stuff.
Yeah.
That, I think that you kind of failed there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that would be safe to say that you are not what are you doing?
You're clearly off the path.
Yeah, like you are lacking responsibility, and maybe he can still do it, but it just means that people are gonna be like, he's gonna lose some people.
It's just so different for me, especially when I first heard him. I want to say the first song I heard him on was with B.O.B.
Yeah.
Nothing on You. So when you think about Nothing on You, and then the Billionaire song with the Gym Class Heroes dude,
and then of course like Flowers.
Yeah. So like leading up to where he is now.
Yeah.
His responsibility is to make music. Now, is it beneficial to him? I would probably say use that versus is he responsible?
Yeah.
I think this is I think this is a net negative.
Yeah,
for him.
Yeah. It doesn't match up to the rest of his catalog.
No. Yeah. But hey, I mean, even LL Cool J has, the racist song, right? So
yeah, but I mean, Bruno Mars played the Super Bowl with Beyonce. He played the Super Bowl with Beyonce. That was a co-feature joint.
Yeah. So you
don't need a Sexy Red single to pop you off or anything. I was excited about the Anderson .Paak Bruno Mars situation.
True.
But when I seen that, it's kind of what I'm gonna do with that?
yeah,
This move is like for somebody who's falling off. But Bruno Mars is still somebody who has records at the top of the charts as far as collaborations, things he does on his own.
That's true.
Like if it was somewhere where, he was down bad and he needed to be relevant again to get ready for a rollout, I could see it.
Yeah.
But this, once you said, is a net negative for him. And I don't think it did anything for Sexy Red either. Like I said, the song hit and fell off the charts immediately.
Yeah.
Which actually makes all of this that much more puzzling.
Or maybe not. Maybe people that are just fans of Bruno Mars in general will be like, okay, don't like this one. I'll move on to the next one. Maybe we're in this singles type of era.
Yeah.
Maybe nobody cares.
Yeah, I don't think he loses any fans from it, but I just don't think it wasn't beneficial to him at all.
He didn't gain any either.
No.
Who knows? Maybe there's a whole string of Sexy Red fans that now like Bruno Mars.
Think
they probably already like That's What I Like.
Probably.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Because, I mean, that song kind of was a
dope record.
A super hit.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
In Finesse, those were slaps, if you will, like the kids say.
Yeah.
But this, like I said, it didn't appeal. It wasn't Sexy Red enough for the Sexy Red fans, and it certainly wasn't Bruno Mars enough for fans.
No.
So, but that's what happens a lot of times when you're in the process of code switching.
Yeah.
Hey,